Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about gender justice. So when we are discussing about gender justice, we are basically talking about Banwari Devi. And this article is written by Madhavi Thousand, who has talked about Banwari Devi, a hero we actually hate in our system. So in the beginning, we should know who is Banwari Devi. Banwari Devi at OBC Kumar Caste community social worker from Rajasthan, and she is an important figure in Indian women's rights. Her story reveals the insidious ways caste and patriarchy double down on women raising voices against it. So basically, she was from a marginalized community, and she was working as a Sathin. And Sathin is basically to create awareness about different social problems, and she was particularly working in the area of women development project of the Rajasthan government. And in that time, when she was working to create awareness regarding child marriage in her locality. And while doing the awareness, she has been harassed and she has been gang raped by a caste man because the awareness against child marriage was considered as a problem because the practice was child marriage was practiced by a caste man, and when someone is talking about their uh, norms as a problem, then that becomes a problem for the community. And Banwari Devi was gang raped by 5 men at her workplace. So in 1992, Banwari's, when you talk about her story, Banwari's tension with the village community began as she started working on the issue of child marriage. She, along with her other Sathis, ran door-to-door campaign to sensitize their community members against child marriage. Things turned sour when she, Kumar Lodvasu, tried to pursue Ram Karan Vijay and his Apaka's family against the marriage of their one-year-old daughter. This move was met with immense disapproval and hostility by 40 Gujar out of 100 households. Thereafter, the DSP and SGO also started making rounds in the village to stop child marriage. So they succeeded in preventing the marriage of the one-year-old child, but only for a day. The child marriage was in the next day the child marriage was taken place, and there were no information, no police action taken. So after this incident, Banwari and her husband were socially boycotted by the entire community. Her fields were destroyed and fodder was taken. The Gujar community was instructed to neither sell their goods to Banwari nor buy from her. Moreover, those who tried to lend her a helping hand were also threatened by the Gujar and forced to withdraw. This nightmare only got worse when one day Banwari and her husband were working in the fields, and Ram Karan Gujar with 4 other Gujar men came and began to beat her husband. When she protested, they attacked her and gang raped her. Banwari told her co-worker about the rape. They both went to the station to register a complaint. The DSP and Thanigar displayed skepticism and indifference towards the incident. They humiliated her with questions like, "Do you even know free?" And only after hours of humiliation did they agree to lodge her apart. After this, Banwari was directed to the PHE for medical examination. The male doctor at the PHE refused to examine her and further referred her to the SMS hospital in Jaipur. When she arrived at the hospital, the doctors demanded an order from the magistrate to conduct the examination. There is no such rule law that mandates a victim to produce such an order before medical examiners. Things finally moved when the director of DWC put pressure on the police. The medical examination happened 48 hours later. The Indian law requires this to be done within 24 hours. And the magistrate had given orders for a general medical examination, not rape. The medical report stated that the injuries on Banwari's hand and legs were caused by a blunt and simple instrument. Therefore, Banwari and her husband were sent back to Basi Thana, where she was asked to deposit her lehenga as evidence. In absence of alternative clothing, Banwari had to cover herself with her husband's blood-stained turban, and they walked 3 kilometers to the nearest Sathin's house at 1 a.m. Banwari's fellow villagers accused her of lying and fabricating the entire incident, continuing to boycott her as they did before this. However, she did receive significant support from various women's rights. They organized a meeting with the villagers to discuss the realities of this. However, most of the villagers spoke against her. There were a few supporters in the village, but they were all clandestine supporters. Finally, the court ruled out that the accused were not guilty, stating inter alia that Banwari's husband couldn't have passively watched his wife being raped. The judge, other reasoning include an upper caste man could not have defiled himself by raping a lower caste woman. And a middle-aged man from an Indian village could not possibly have participated in a gang rape in the presence of his own nephew, given the accused included a nephew, uncle. So here comes, when we talk about why we are discussing about Banwari Devi and the incident that has taken place. It has connection with the law that has come for the protection of women at their workplace, right? So, Vishaka guidelines of victory for women's movement. Although Banwari Devi never received justice, her case brought significant victories for the women's movement in India. With her case in focus, Vishaka and a number of other women's groups filed a PIL in the Supreme Court to enforce the fundamental rights of working women under Article 14, 1921 of the Constitution of India. So, Article 14, it talks about, provides equality before law. Then Article 19 talks about freedom of speech, and Article 21 talks about protection of life and personal liberty. So they propagated and the view that Banwari attracted the ire of her rapist solely on the basis of her will. Hence, the petition resulted in the Supreme Court judgment of August 1997 that provided the basic definitions of sexual harassment in the workplace and laid down the requirements for employers dealing with complaints of sexual harassment. This prescribed a set of procedural guidelines that came to be known as Vishaka guidelines. Although this was a major legal victory for the women's movement in India, it was only in 2013 that these guidelines were incorporated as a proper legislative act called the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. Now, what about Banwari Devi and her justice? It has been 25 years towards the accused and 4 years Banwari still await justice. She lives in precarious conditions despite having represented India in the United Nations, for the World Conference of Women in Beijing, and won awards like Nirja Bharat Memorial Award and grants of rupees 50,000 from Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Ashok Gehlots, in the year 2002. Moreover, Bhavandar, a movie is also based on her story. Banwari's case is a landmark case in India's judicial history. It brings forth the deplorable realities of India's socio-political arrangements and the rampant corruption in our institutions. Moreover, it reflects how the nexus of power, which operates on the hierarchies of caste, class, and gender, works to oppress the minorities in society. So Bhanwari's change-making effort were met with such a grave challenges and backlash because of her identity as a lower caste woman, the deep rootedness of patriarchy and the caste system is evident from the police actions, the judge's statement, and the ease with which the dominant caste men were able to manipulate the narrative in their favor and turn the villages against one another. So the injustices suffered by Banwari Devi are truly despicable, enough to crush an ordinary personal spirit. However, she is still committed to her cause of social justice that works with various women's organizations to empower and empower. With her struggle, Banwari has advanced India's women's movement enormously and has broken several taboos surrounding rape. She has empowered Indian women to come forward and speak about their experiences of rape and not be ashamed of it. Her contribution to the movement is monumental, and her indomitable spirit is a source of inspiration. But we, a corrupt, patriarchal, and racist society, have failed her in every way. 25 years have passed, and her rapists continue to walk free. 25 years and still await justice. So this is it for today. Thank you.